Hey guys, what's up? It's Schla coming back to ya with another episode of Car Rides with Schla. And today, I'm honestly just trying to have some thoughts about things. I'm trying to think, I'm trying to figure stuff out and kind of the direction that I should go in and you know, thinking about myself, thinking about how other people have reacted to me before, what's special, what isn't special. And I don't know what's actually going to end up happening, of course, because it can be quite difficult to make a change, even if, I often try to describe myself as like I have vision. I have good, very good vision and ideas, but the execution of the vision and ideas is usually not as good as it could be, or, things like that. So, anyways, um, I think that what I want to get into, a lot of times when I've done this show, I've really had this pressure to constantly be talking. I felt it recently where it's the volume of my words that is my most paramount thing of importance. It's like I want to try to fill up the space because I know how videos work. I know how people are. I know people get bored. I know people kind of need that constant stimulation, unless it has to be like an edited video, basically, in order to, make it appear like somebody had it all together the whole time. But, the truth is that that's kind of where your impression needs to be, when you're making these things. And that's what it's been for me. It's been the quantity. I've been very big on quantity, trying to make sure I keep saying stuff, being apologetic. I'm realizing, though, what is the actual better direction for myself? Is the better choice and direction to continue that pursuit, or instead actually embrace the quieter moments more? Because really, I think, at least in my life and when I've been at my best, it's really when I've been serious and people are able to take me seriously. I have my goofy moments, I have my intelligent, serious moments, and anytime I went crazy and I started saying things that were hot, saying things that were controversial, saying things that really struck people, and I think I've called it before on this show, like, sometimes I'm saying things and, as I've gotten older, I've kind of been more aware of it, where it's like I'm ready to strike and I can kind of feel it, but like there's always an urge to just pull that trigger and to just say the thing and to say it. And constantly throughout my whole life, I've been surrounded by people, whether it's, family or friends or whatever, who are always trying to be very specific and picky about my wording of things, being very overreacting and oversensitive to things that I say, but then, if somebody else said something similar or even more mean, they would just brush it aside. And I think I'm just starting to realize that I'm at my best when I don't give in to that side of me. I mean, some people are, I think, and there's probably a time and place for my more provocative statements and for my humor and all that stuff. There's definitely a time and place for it, but I think it's really time I start to work on the quality end of the quantity. You know, in the past period of time, I've obviously been growing my ability to have quantity, and it's incredibly easy for me to talk with lots of volume and lots of words. You know, even you guys see the lowest or like, the worst that I'm capable of because this is it. You know, this is the end of the rope. I mean, sorry, I'm just saying random words right now. This is the lowest form because I'm not actually in a conversation with a person. When I'm actually talking to a person who I feel like I can get along with, it's actually better than this show. And I know I said this recently, but I feel it's necessary to repeat just because it's pretty contextual to what I'm talking about. So, as I'm trying to go on this journey, I think that that's probably the next stage of this is like, yeah, I mean, the car rides with Schla, yeah, it works as an ability to cultivate my capabilities of doing verbal onslaughts, which is definitely a skill. Most people can't really do a verbal onslaught, but I think now the second layer of this is actually about um, the second layer of it is actually about the quality now because I've been able to pull off quantity for a long time. I think for most of my life I've been able to, but I can remember very clearly when I was around 14, I want to say, and I was getting into CSGO. I didn't really like the game for the game. It was just my first exposure to a voice chat system like that. And I would talk and talk and talk. And I remember people would say, like, are you even taking a breath? Like, how are you even able to breathe? I feel like you haven't even taken a breath or anything like that. You're just talking and talking and talking. Those are the kind of comments that I would be told and shown and all that. And it was always since I was about 14 I was aware of that. And I guess in some ways what I feel is that from since then until now we've been at the quantity cultivation, and that was like the real beginning of the quantity. And at this point, yeah, I mean, it is at the point where if I'm texting someone, I can usually fairly quickly whip up like a giant paragraph in like 2 seconds. Whereas there's a lot of people that it takes them a while to like think of a response, and they don't know exactly what to say, and there's all this, you know I really can whip up and type very quickly. And even on this show, I'm talking in a slower form now because it's just kind of how I treat the show. I'm starting to think that talking quick is not my purpose. It's a skill that I have. I think that if I want to push it, I'm capable of talking quickly, but I just don't think that that's really special, or that's not really the thing that I'm feeling called upon to fix at this present moment. I think this present moment, it's really about slowing down and focusing on what's important and, kind of what needs to be done. Not like putting a bunch of pizzazz on it. I mean, maybe I'll change my mind, but at least for now, this is kind of the concept I'm trying to outline for myself. So it's interesting. It's interesting to ponder these things and to try to take a different direction. But now that I've thought about it and been reflecting on it, it's really something that has been shown to me my entire life. It's always been the case where I'm tempted to use my brain and my mind and my mouth to say these provocative things or these like crazy things. And I still think there's always going to be a time and place for that, but there's also serious stuff I have to work on too. And it doesn't really take much practice or skill to do that. I feel like that comes naturally to me. It's very easy to just say the wrong thing, just to be like, contrarian or and I always have those urges and that like archetypal personality construction is down to my core. That's just kind of how I roll. So yeah, I mean it's all super. I think it's all super interesting to think about. So, but yeah, it's definitely a new direction. Something that I think it's incredibly important to be keeping in mind moving forward. It's 2026. It's a important year for me. I wanted to use this as a year to really grow and to, reflect and take a little bit more seriously than last year. But I just noticed these patterns in my life and a lot of the stress that people have put me through. It's a revolving theme, and I think it's true, and I'm going to admit and continue to agree that it isn't fair at all. I don't think it's fair that when I'm in an argument with somebody, I can diagnose the situation, I can explain it well, and then another person will be too sensitive and will demand space and will demand that they're upset for a duration of time, whether it's a couple hours or maybe even a day or two. Some people's egos are just they put walls up fast, and it doesn't matter really if you have the perfect explanation, which I'm not going to say I don't have the perfect delivery, but I think pretty universally speaking, when I've been in arguments, um, I'm not going to say I have the perfect argument necessarily, because that's not always true. I think, though, for most people, most of the time, I do. It may not be perfect, but again, just in comparison, like I hear what other people say. They're usually missing a lot of details, they're missing a lot of nuance, and they're missing a lot of context. That's typically what I find when I talk to people. Now, my delivery, what I'm coming to find out, oftentimes is far too explosive. You know, I can start talking fast, and my words can cut, and they can cut accurately. In the case of if somebody's mistreating me, if somebody's being mean to me, I can say it and it can be very accurate and true. And kind of what I've learned about that is that a lot of people, they don't really want to admit the wrong traits about themselves, or I should say negative traits. There's a lot of people where, I've diagnosed something incredibly accurately. Like, I know it's true, and I'll explain it to them, I'll spend a long time explaining, and they'll just deny it. And it's one of those things where, it can't really get misconstrued. there's a pattern. You know, it's somebody I've known for a long time. They have these consistent reactions to certain statements of mine that would allude to a certain thing. And then, you know, when I call it out, when I try to label it, I think it's probably 90% accurate, and the other person will just deny it. And I think I chalk that up to most people are not putting in as much effort to attempt to comprehend themselves. Most people are not doing their version of car rides with Schla, as I think everybody hypothetically should. I think I guess the expectation is just not going to be there. So when you have like the amount of reflection that I do, and then other people spend instead their hobby is of like a video game, you know, I'm going to call it out for what it is, that there's a difference. You know, the way a person spends their time is going to affect who they are and what they're capable of. And while spending time playing a video game gives you joy, gives you precious dopamine, it will improve your skill in said game. At the end of the day, it would pale in comparison to likely you sitting there and actually critically thinking and doing some self analysis and reflection. Although the other obvious caveat is I don't know that everybody's capable of it. You know, a lot of people need a therapist or need another person just to get a dialogue like this going. So, you know, I think that deserves to be said as well. Um, it's just like is what it is, you know. I think everything I'm saying it deserves some kind of it deserves an analysis. I'm really hoping that I will actually paste this one into GPT because it's something I always want to do, but I just never end up doing. And it's very helpful to see the feedback, you know? But that's how I feel about other people. I don't know that I understand sometimes, you know, the power of my words because there's a lot of people who've trashed me. There's a lot of people that have written me off as not being good at communicating. And I really believe that. I think even now there's residual hurt from just the lack of recognition that I get even now. Obviously, with this show, yeah, I could have thought that by now I would have had some people watching, but it's like I still don't. So it's almost like as of now, the universe is still not acknowledging me. God is not acknowledging me yet. And there's not really any people who are either. You know, there's multiple people in my life who actually would still try to criticize my delivery, criticize the way I word things, and it's not fair. It becomes one sided because I'm willing to take the self criticism, and even in this conversation, I'm willing to understand how, you know, it tends to be a problem where my words can be so explosive. If something is not meticulously calculated, people tend to misinterpret what I'm saying or what I mean. And I never knew why, but now I am aware of it more. So, you know, there's still. But, like, the whole point is I made it to this point. It took me too long. I'll admit that. I should have learned sooner that for whatever reason, the way I am, like, I really have to be meticulous about things. Like, I cannot just blurt stuff out and, just like I just can't do that. Um, it's no good. But that's the whole point is, and I notice people, obviously the people in my life, I continue to keep up with them and talk to them, and there's not the same degree of progress. And as much as I'm hard on myself about progress, I was just thinking today and kind of re-remembering the way that I did things and just how much progress has been made. I even think doing this show, getting to this point, is just, it's so much better and more productive than where I was before, where it's like before I would just listen to music on the way to and from work, and that was fine at the time, but it just didn't make any sense. Like doing this, figuring this out, doing this show has been such a godsend for me. It really something that I almost take for granted, because I'm like remembering and I'm thinking about, how I'm kind of hard on myself about certain optimization things and whatnot, and how, I'm not lifting weights, I'm not running, I don't have, I'm not checking off everything yet. And that's very upsetting for me. It is. It's really upsetting. But at the same time, I've made a lot of progress in a lot of ways. In some ways, I feel like maybe I've regressed. But in terms of the grand scheme of things, I mean, and it deserves recognition. I don't think I get it enough, but I think that's probably been the whole point. Some people get it, some people don't, but it's all been about forging a character. Like, who am I? Who am I supposed to be? Whether your experiences in life are easy or difficult and certain things and circumstances, it's obviously going to shape you. And a lot of times it's the people that go through the hardest things that they get shaped a specific way for that purpose. Now, in my case, I've been given things easy in a lot of ways. There's a lot of ways that I feel that my life is easier than many other people. But there's other ways that, you know, I've had it kind of rough, kind of in odd ways that aren't super relatable to other people, in ways that people would be relatively confused about why or what I'm even talking about. My experience in life, that's just how it's felt, really. It's had that kind of confusion to it. Where, yeah, I mean, in some ways, like, I've been really fortunate. I've been really lucky. In some other very isolated ways, I've been unfairly treated and, have not really been able to form bonds despite that kind of being this thing I always wanted to do. I wanted to have friends. I wanted to have friends for a long time. It was this whole thing that I really wanted to prioritize, was knowing people for a long time, you know? And so I've always been in this rush to try to make a bunch of friends quickly. And it just becomes, just becomes crazy because, like, I rush to do that and I failed. I mean, a lot of, like, in that rushing because I wanted to achieve, I wanted to have friends early. Um, I just didn't get anywhere. And so, yeah, I don't know. It was all, I guess, a part of learning and growing. But here we are, you know? I think that I wasn't really meant to have friends early. I think if I did, again, most of my perspectives on things would just be totally warped, and I would, like, if that component had been filled, I already have explained, I don't even know why I would have ever pursued content creation. It really took a lot to finally get me to even do this. And I guess I still don't even know. I mean, I could be saying this and it still not really be what ends up happening. It's difficult to know these things, but I'm here and I'm trying to do what I think I'm supposed to do. The more that times went on, the more that it appears to be the case to do speaking, to have it apparent in public. It's what I feel like I'm meant to do, but I'm not being given the glory right away, for whatever reason. Can't say I know why, because I don't. But it's probably some kind of forgery, some forging of character. Do want to document I dropped my iPhone 16 Pro Max, but it was in the bag, and I kind of wonder how it actually hit the ground, but it sounded so loud. I was so stressed, but it appears to be fine, so I don't, like, there's no cracks on the glass or anything like that, and doesn't seem like there's any marks on the body, but I guess time will tell. It's just like the second time that happened. It's never when it's in my hand. I only drop stuff when it's not in my hand, pretty much. It's always how it works. But as long as my hands are on something, it's like always safe. Something I've kind of noticed. I'm just Jotting that down, yeah. I mean, I really, anytime I've damaged anything or lost anything, it's when my hands are not. I don't think I've ever dropped anything holding it. As long as it's in my hands, it's like it's lucky or something. All right, anyways, it's been schla, and now it's time to buy schla. So, see you schla.